Hey everybody, welcome back to the show. Can't wait to get into today's topic, which is the earliest sign of Alzheimer's, and I would include dementia with that as well. Do keep in mind, a lot of people try to differentiate between dementia and Alzheimer's. Really what we're looking at is Alzheimer's being a later stage of dementia in terms of classification, and there are many signs that you're going to want to look for. I'll give you those signs here for today. But what I want to share with you, and this is directly from the Amen Institute, they do tens of thousands of scans, I believe on an annual basis, just for Alzheimer's. It is similar to the full body MRI where they're looking at the brain. They just use the SPECT scan, which is a little bit different scan. And what they're finding along with their questionnaires and correlated with actual Alzheimer's is one specific early sign. I want to share that with you here today, but I also want to go over other signs that you may see and some that people confuse for dementia or Alzheimer's that really are more related to stress, high levels of cortisol, and how to know. All right, so let's dive right into it. The first thing that you should know is that Alzheimer's does begin decades before. So dementia, Alzheimer's, we'll use them interchangeably today. Dementia and Alzheimer's begins decades before it is actually diagnosed. Okay, and the same could be said for any major cause of disease, cardiovascular, blood pressure, diabetes, etc. It begins decades in advance. Now, the nice thing is this: if you do a full body MRI and you do MRI the brain, not using contrast, you can do this contrast free, so radiation free, that you're able to start to see those changes in the brain. And you can detect those 10 to 20 years in advance. That's why, although there's an expense to it, I do believe it is one of the best things that you can do for your overall health. And of course, you'll start to hear more about that. I've listed as well on my Friday review shows specific blood tests that you can do to look for early signs. But truthfully, the way that you'll know is through one of these brain-based scans. All right, but let's get into what are some of the earlier signs and symptoms, and then I'll give you the earliest one to look for as the biggest indicator. All right, so a lot of people talk about short-term memory loss and basically forgetting where they put their keys, not remembering names. All right, so let's just make a few things clear. First of all, some people are just not great with names. Like they've just made it up in their mind that they're not great with names and they don't remember names. So that's just some individuals, right? You can certainly get better at remembering names. There's all sorts of different tips and tricks to relating someone's face with their name, etc. But we won't go through that here today. You can get a quick learning guide on that. You'll be able to look at it very, very easily. The other is just short-term memory loss as well as misplacing items. That oftentimes happens to people at any age. And it's really based more on stress, specifically in the moment when they put their keys down, or they went to go do something, but they had a million things on their mind. A lot of times that's predicated more about high cortisol than it actually is on any type of dementia or Alzheimer's. So don't think because you're in your 30s right now and you forgot where you put your keys or you forgot someone's birthday, you might have now kids. It's different from when you were younger. You might have a ton of different responsibilities. You're running around trying to do a million different things. All right, that is not abnormal, but that is not an early sign necessarily of Alzheimer's. Now, you're getting into your 50s and 60s and beyond, and these things start to seem more commonplace. Well, it is something to look for. All right. Another one is being able to solve problems with which you used to be able to with relative ease. So it doesn't mean that you're going to lose intelligence as you get older, or you're not going to gain probably tremendous intelligence as you get older unless you're actually working at it. But if the same things you were able to handle, a crossword puzzle, Sudoku, etc., those seem to become like monumentally more difficult, that is a sign potentially that you might be moving towards Alzheimer's dementia. Now, before I go on with the other symptoms, I want to share with you this. I did a 3-part series and many other shows on Alzheimer's. I now have a whole podcast category dedicated to the brain. So even if you get diagnosed with Alzheimer's and early Alzheimer's specifically, there are plans to reverse Alzheimer's and specifically halt the progression. So do not think that this is an aging or death-based sentence. It is not. We will link up many of those shows at stephencabral.com/3051, which is today's podcast with all the takeaways. All right. The next one is this. Disorientation. So basically getting disoriented with where you are, time of the day, season, your own home, forget anything about disorientation in that way can absolutely be. So that is a sign. That's a legitimate sign of potentially moving more towards dementia and Alzheimer's. Sometimes spatial awareness goes along with that, not being able to get your balance on your feet specifically as well. I wouldn't, so this is one that I want to classify as maybe it's struggling to find the right word. So a lot of people say, I can't find my words. It also could just be you're sleep deprived, right? You're super stressed. You've got deadlines at work. There's a lot of things going on. Struggling to find your words is more of a sympathetic nervous system dominant, stress-based characteristic for a lot of people. It doesn't necessarily mean that this is an ongoing or upcoming sign of Alzheimer's and dementia, but it can be, all right? Another one, and this is important, not the number one, not the earliest sign, but social withdrawal. A lot of people know that there's changes, even subconsciously, going on in their own mind, in their own brain. And so they start to withdraw a little bit because they realize that they don't have maybe as the wherewithal of recalling memories or names or recalling words as easily. So they start to withdraw. It's not typically the first, it's a little bit later into the process, but it is something to look for yourself, for your parents, your grandparents, or whoever it may be. One more I want to give you is this before I get into the earliest sign. And this one is a little bit with withdrawal, but you can sometimes see actual personality changes. Sometimes people with Alzheimer's start to become more suspicious. They become less trusting. They become more confused and oftentimes a bit more anxious. And that's because, again, subconsciously, they know that something's going on. They don't know if they can trust themselves. They don't know if they can trust others. They don't know if others are moving their things, taking their things. And unfortunately, there can actually be a bit of a personality change. And anybody that's ever had a family member go through dementia or Alzheimer's understands this and how sad it can be. Now, again, the good thing is there are multiple studies showing that Alzheimer's can be halted and even reversed. And that's in 9 out of 10 cases. These are not necessarily just outliers whatsoever. Okay, so I wanted to share with you here today, what is the earliest sign of dementia and Alzheimer's from the Amen Clinic, where they've done now, hundreds of thousands of most likely scans, as well as those questionnaires coming in. So the earliest sign of dementia and Alzheimer's that truly is an indicator, not the misrecalling of memories or words or names, but it's actually the number one is getting lost more easily. That is very easily attributed to an older age sign of dementia and Alzheimer's than it would be for someone younger and just stressed, right? If you're younger and stressed, you forget where you put your keys, you forget someone's name, you forget the next thing that you were supposed to do, not uncommon. What would be uncommon, even when you're younger, is to say, I don't know where I am right now. I'm lost. That's a different story than not being able to recall something. And a 1B that they gave, let's say that's the 1A, a 1B would say that they're no longer able to park straight. So if you're with a parent or grandparent or with a loved one and they're not able to, maybe they couldn't parallel park before, but they're not able to pull into a spot and pull into a spot correctly and straight, that can be an early sign of dementia and Alzheimer's. So I want to do this today to not cause any fear. Certainly don't want that. Hopefully spread hope that you can detect Alzheimer's dementia 10 to 20 years early by doing these brain-based scans and full-body MRIs. Then there are protocols, and I've laid those out on my podcast, for the ability to, at the very least, halt progression, and at the best, to be able to reverse these signs of brain-based aging. So hopefully this was helpful. Of course, if it was, I would love you to share the show with anyone you believe you can serve. And it is over at StephenCabral.com/3051 for all the details. Take care, everybody. Have an amazing day, and I'll be back tomorrow with a brand new Cabral Concept. Thanks so much for tuning into today's show. Before you go, don't forget to hit that subscribe button. I want to make sure that you're getting our daily content, not missing out on anything. Functional medicine, wellness, weight gain, weight loss, anti-aging, living longer, stronger, and all of the most cutting-edge research. And if there's any topics you want to hear, feel free to leave them in the comments below. Take care.